Hello 9IG, this is Mujahid Sartawi and welcome to the computer science class of 23rd of March 2020, part 2. In the previous class we talked about the main differences between compilers, interpreters, and assemblers, and I hope that you know now the differences between them. In this lesson, we will see this table in page 94. Can you open your books on page 94? The table 7.1 summary of translation programs. This table shows the main differences between the different types of translators. So here we have in the left side, we have the compiler, interpreter, and assembler. Now let's start with the compiler. The compiler translates high-level language program into a machine code from a high-level language like Python into a machine code or a machine language like zeros and ones or a binary code, while the interpreter will execute, not to translate only, executes a high-level language program statement, a statement at a time, which means it goes to the program line by line, statement by statement, and translate it or execute it at a time. While the assembler translates a low-level language program into a machine code. For example, you have a low-level language or assembly code, it will be translated into a machine code or a binary code. While in the compiler an executable file of the machine code is produced, here we have no executable file of the machine is produced. Here we have an executable file of the machine code is produced. Another thing, one high-level language statement can be translated into several machine codes instructions. Here in the interpreter we have one high-level language program statement may require several machine code instructions to be executed. While in the assembler, we have one low-level language statement is usually translated into one machine code instruction. In the compiler, we have the compiled programs are used without compiler. If you already have already compiled programs, they either need the compiler. Interpreted programs cannot be used without the interpreter, in this case of the interpreter. While in the assembler, the assembled program can be used without the assembler. In the compiler, a compiled program is usually distributed for general use. While here in the interpreter, an interpreter is often used when a program is being developed, when you are in the development stage. While in the assembler, the assembled program is usually distributed for general use. So this table, which shows the differences between different types of translators, is very important for you to memorize and to understand. Now let's go to another topic. What happens when things go wrong? What about the errors? We know that we are, as humans, we make errors. So in case of human errors, what's gonna happen? And what types of errors that we might have? So we have different types of error. The first type of errors is called the syntax error. So highlight this. Syntax error is where a program or statement does not obey the rules of the programming language. For example, you are typing a program in Python programming language and you are not writing according to the rules or according to the grammar of the language. In this case, you are committing a mistake and this error is called a syntax error. For example, let's say we are programming something in a in a programming language, and each statement should end with a semicolon, and you forgot to add the semicolon at the end of the line, so you're having an error of type syntax error. Now, if a program cannot be translated, if a program contains a syntax error, it could not be translated because it contains errors. So your program won't be able to execute and you will have a syntax error. While on the other hand, we have another type of errors called logical errors. Logical error, in case that you wrote a program but your program doesn't do what the programmer wanted to do, this is called a logical error. For example, you are making a program to calculate the average of student marks, let's say, and you are not doing the average function in a proper way. Of course, you will get a result, but logically it's not true. So in this case, you are having an error of type logical error. So let's highlight this definition of the second type of errors, which is logical error. Okay, so when you discover, the question is, when do we discover the logical errors? Of course, when we are running the program or when we begin the program. Now in details, let's go in details with the syntax error. When a program is being compiled, when you are compiling your program, if any syntax errors are found, no translated program is produced. This is very important. If you have any error in your program, it won't be translated. Instead, what's gonna happen? A list of all errors in the whole program is produced for you as a programmer, and the programmer should correct all of these errors and recompiles the program. So you have two options. The option number one, your program won't be able to work. The option number two is to fix all of these errors and recompile your program again. When a program is being interpreted, the interpreter performs the actions specified by each statement until a syntax error is found. So the interpreter is doing something differently. While the compiler is going to check the whole program and see if you have any syntax error, the interpreter is going to do a check for the first line, and if the interpreter found a program or a statement with a problem or with an error, it will stop. So the interpreter performs the action specified by each statement until a syntax error is found. The programmer is, before we continue, I need to highlight this. So the interpreter performs the action specified by each statement until a syntax error is found. The programmer is then altered to the place in the program where error found. The error is corrected by the programmer, and the interpretation continues until the next error is found or the task is completed. So the difference between the compiler and the interpreter is that the compiler is going to check the whole program, and it gives you at the end that there is a mistake, there is an error or syntax error, while the interpreter is going to stop on each line which has an error. Now let's go to the logical errors. In the logical errors, when a program is being run, if it doesn't do what it should do, there's a logical error. So this is very important. You have to highlight it. These can be found by tracing what the program does and using a test data. So we need to test our data if it's taking its action or not, and we will explain this in chapter 9. Okay, so this is all for today. Thank you and see you next time.